Greetings out there, video fans. Today my camera seems to be sputtering and refusing to turn on for whatever reason. I'm not sure if it's just the battery or if the camera's finally on its last legs, but there might be a new look to my videos sometime soon. I might have to get a new camera. I don't know. Anyway, today's video is a review of the show Beyond Belief, Fact or Fiction with Jonathan Frakes.
Beyond belief.
I truly do live a strange life that I'll just watch something and then be like, yeah, I gotta review this. I gotta make a video about this because it's an interesting thing and it's worth talking about, at least to you. You know, I'm sure you take some of my recommendations to heart. But I recommend watching at least one episode of Beyond Belief, Fact or Fiction because this is a damn fun show and really goes to show how creative the late 1990s, early 2000s TV landscape was. I might go so far as to say that's my favorite era of TV because I guess the era of Sci-Fi Channel, and that's the type of stuff I grew up watching. And I have very fond memories of like Stargate SG-1 and especially The New Outer Limits, which I've already made a video about. I love The New Outer Limits. And Beyond Belief, I would say, has a very similar tone and feel to The New Outer Limits, albeit with much less of a production value and writing that's way goofier, but that's kind of besides the point. Just like an aesthetic, all these late 90s, early 2000s sci-fi shows have a very similar look and feel to them. And Beyond Belief is unique in its premise. It has an insanely unique premise that is just like, wow, how did nobody before Beyond Belief think of this? And how has nobody after ever managed to capture like the flavor of it? It's such a flavorful show. It's such a neat tone. I first heard about Beyond Belief via the Neil Cicerega parody, and I kind of discounted it because I'm like, I'm not so big into Neil Cicerega's brand of humor. So if Neil Cicerega and Ryan Murphy and the bunch are into it, I probably wouldn't give a shit about it. But also I didn't know it was hosted by Jonathan Frakes, because Ryan Murphy's impression of Jonathan Frakes isn't that good. But then I watched the actual show and it's like, wow, this is not only way better than the Neil Cicerega parody, it's actually like more funny and self-aware than the Neil Cicerega parody. So it's kind of like, why Neil Cicerega even feel the need to parody this to begin with? It's obviously just millennial nostalgia panderbait, which is most of what Neil Cicerega makes. Beyond Belief itself is fine, though. It's a really, really well-made show, and it's a lot of fun to watch. And Jonathan Frakes is, like, perfect. I haven't seen the episodes with James Brolin yet, but Jonathan Frakes is just very charismatic and an excellent choice for the show in every regard, especially the segments that he narrates. He does that pretty well. I really liked the episode I watched because it feels like you've stumbled onto something really ancient and obscure and kind of volatile, and I can only imagine what this must have been like to watch live in the late 90s, early 2000s. This is a great example of broadcast TV being able to do something that streaming simply couldn't. And there are new episodes of Beyond Belief, but Beyond Belief is unique because it's not like the shitty Netflix revival like MST3K had or whatever, where it's like not like the original at all, and all the fun of a live TV viewing experience is lost because the Beyond Belief revival, which still has Jonathan Frakes, is just broadcast over in Germany, where they don't give a fuck about streaming because they're a functional country that respects their media ecosystem. I guess over in Germany, the show just has like a massive following, which is really cool. And I like that Beyond Belief has been spared the shitty Netflix regurgitation model where it's like, let's make it a streaming show. And no one's going to have fun gathering around a streaming show and figuring out what's fake and what's real. It can only work in real time. If you can rewind it and you can rethink about it, it's like, what's even the point? This show is designed to be watched in a live broadcast format where you can tune in after a commercial, you can catch one of these segments, you don't need to catch all 5 of them, you can catch one of them and like near the end and then figure out that, oh, you know, that one's real or fake, but you don't need to watch the entire episode. Like, this is such a great example of a show that is designed specifically not for streaming and would not work on streaming, so that's really cool. that Beyond Belief basically wouldn't work as a Netflix revival. But so anyway, the episode I watched was episode 1 of season 3, I think, the one with the Jules Verne illusion at the beginning. I like the illusions at the beginning. Most of them I've already seen, but they're pretty cool, and I do like how Jonathan Frakes delivers them, and some of them are presented in a more interesting way than in my book of optical illusions that I have. I'm in kind of a neat position to talk about the show, because not only do I have a book with basically every optical illusion, or every popular optical illusion, but I also have a book with basically every popular urban legend, and obviously a lot of the stories on this show are based on common urban legends. I've talked in the past about how I dislike shows that just shittily rehash urban legends, like The Caterpillar and Night Gallery. I fucking hate that, because it's so stupid, because it's like, earwigs don't go inside people's ears, that's just not real, so I'm not scared of it. But Beyond Belief is unique in the fact that it celebrates the art form of urban legends, not only covering some of the more obscure ones, but also it doesn't necessarily say that these things are true or that you should be scared of them. Like, if you're skeptical of them, then the show's like, okay, be skeptical of them. It's probably bullshit, which is just a very unique approach, and it doesn't feel hacky at all. It actually celebrates urban legends like as an art form, as opposed to just shamelessly rehashing them and presenting it as an original story. I really have nothing against urban legends on their own, especially the more obscure ones that are like interesting and you kind of wonder how anyone could have come up with it. And I like the idea of folklore and oral transmission, but you do have to take into account that if a writing team who's paid to write original stories, like Night Gallery, just rips off a shitty urban legend that makes no sense and then expects me to be scared by it, I'm not going to be scared by it. They better come up with something a little more inventive than that, that's actually scary. So, Beyond Belief is maybe characterized the most by its really fucking corny acting. Like, I'm sure not even all the actors on the show are, like, untalented or necessarily bad, but I feel like they're directed in such a way that the line delivery and all the choreography and everything is just as awkward as possible. And this actually strengthens the show, because when everything is over-dramatized to the point of ridiculousness, it does make it more difficult to determine what's fact and what's fiction. So it's like, this segment might have stupider acting, but it might be true, whereas the segment with the slightly less stupid acting might be fake. So it's like you have to decide not only whether the acting is stupid, but whether the story is real. So I found that to approach this show, the best approach is to assume that it's true going in, and then you kind of determine where the line of believability is crossed, where like something just patently absurd happens that could not in any way happen, like it just couldn't, like there's just no fucking way. It's obviously just a construct of fiction that's designed to, you know, like serve some kind of fictional purpose. Because like the show says, it's fact or fiction, and fiction has very specific parameters that you come to recognize, especially if you're a writer. I'm probably just good at this because I write sci-fi. But yeah, so that's the approach that I used going into this show. And I got 4 out of the 5 segments right. I got one wrong. We'll get into that. So I'm going to go down and break every segment down, segment by segment. And I'm going to say which one I got wrong and the ones I got right and why I think that happened. This should go without saying, obviously, but spoiler warning for Season 3, Episode 1 of Beyond Belief. If you want to go and play along with me, then I highly encourage that. This is a very fun and interactive show, and it's free on YouTube, so you know, check it out. It's a really fun watch. But okay, so starting off with, there was the story of the girl who gets pregnant from an octopus. Like, she's swimming around an octopus egg, she swallows it, and then gets pregnant and delivers the octopus, or like they excise it out. And Jonathan Frakes makes a specific point to emphasize that the episode doesn't necessarily say she gave birth to the octopus, like literally, but that they just you know, found it in her body and took it out. This obviously is an urban legend. This one is fake. And I knew it was fake The episode, maybe it's supposed to start out with a really easy one, but this is obviously in the same vein as the girl with the spider in her cheek, or the girl with the spider nest in her hairdo, or the earwig. It's a more obscure one. It's definitely more obscure to have an octopus that you get pregnant with, as opposed to, just like an earwig or something. And there's those like weighing videos, like the lobster birth or whatever, and that's kind of the modern equivalent of this type story, but it just keeps making the rounds. It's just like, why are we so fascinated by animals giving birth inside of us and like living inside? It's a weird thing for people to think about and keep believing, because it just doesn't happen. Like, there's not enough space in the human body for animals to breed. I don't know why anyone would believe that. Like, there's obviously organs and tissue, and, like, my leg isn't just, like, air inside. It's muscle and flesh, and things can't really live in there. And Jonathan Frakes is like, oh, well, tapeworms have gotten big, and it's like, well, yeah, but tapeworms have a biology that's specifically designed for the inside of human body. They're a parasite that's evolved over thousands and thousands of years. Whereas an octopus obviously isn't parasitic, it's just an animal. So, I mean, it's like, that's obviously fake. And I guess that it was fake, and it is fake. Namely, what gave it away for me was it didn't say the octopus egg had swam up into her reproductive system. It said she swallowed it. And then I'm like, well, hang on. The digestive system and the reproductive system don't really have any points of contact where, the egg could pass from, like, stomach or intestine to the uterus. I don't think that's really possible. And even if she did swallow the egg, it's not like the octopus would, like, get big inside of her stomach and, grow to full size, because the stomach is all the way up here. It's not down here where it shows it in the episode. It's not, like, low by the gut. It's, like, basically right by your heart. And also, or like a little below your heart, I think. And also, like, the egg would just get dissolved in the stomach acid. So, yeah, that's, like, obviously fake. So, when I was proven right, I was like, wow, this show's gonna be easy. I'm probably gonna ace this. So the second story is a kind of generic haunted house story about this real estate agent who's, like, greedy, and she sells this haunted house to this couple, and then a couple years later, or like months, I forget, but the husband comes in and he's like, oh, my life is ruined, oh damn, the house has a curse and it's made so I have a horrible ulcer and I lost all my stocks and I'm all poor now and my life is ruined. And then she buys the house back from him for less money, and then she dies in the bathtub. She gets electrocuted in the bathtub. And so this one, I was pretty convinced was real. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna bet that this one is probably just a house, and coincidentally, like Jonathan Frakes even says after it, could it just be that everyone who bought this house happens to be unlucky? And I'm like, yeah, this happens. People will attach a curse to a given spot, and then psychosomatically they'll behave in ways that just kind of make them more accident prone. This is a legitimate observed psychological phenomena where people go, oh, this so-and-so house is scary, or it's bad, or there's bad energy here. And then even if there isn't bad energy, people just act like there is bad energy, so bad things will happen. If you're in a house where, some fucking people got chopped up, it doesn't necessarily mean there's ghosts there. It just means the house is a shithole, and you feel like shit because you're there. So I was like, yeah, this probably is a real story. This real estate agent probably got electrocuted in the bathtub. People probably lost their life savings, got ruined in this house because it's probably just a shithole, and people live bad lives when they live in a shithole. And I was like, wow, this is probably a real story. This is probably true. There's nothing too boundary pushing or absurd in the episode. Like, obviously, if a story is real, they can't, like, add in a bunch of goofy shit like ghosts or whatever. There aren't any ghosts in it. It's literally just a house that is supposedly cursed, and then she gets electrocuted at the end. How much of this is played up for dramatic effect? They can't play too much of it for dramatic effect. They kind of have to stick to what's actually happened, even if obviously they can add in all this goofy ass lighting and camera shots, and the acting, like I said, is really fucking corny and over dramatized. So I was like, this one's probably real. And I was proven right. This one did, in fact, according to Jonathan Frakes, happen. So, 2 for 2. The next story is about a wax museum. I love wax museum shit. There's an episode of Alfred Hitchcock about wax museum. There's an episode of Thriller about wax museum. There's an episode of Twilight Zone about wax museum. There's tons of shit about wax museums for whatever reason. I guess they are pretty creepy. I've never been to one, but they sound very interesting. So this one speaks to an aspect of Beyond Belief that I really like, where it'll imply that, like, there's this big set or something, because obviously it's set in a wax museum, so it wants to have, like, these impressive, wax figurines, but it literally just shows, like, one statue of Frankenstein and one of Dracula, and it's, like, barely, like, shown for, like, half a second, then they cut away, because obviously, like, it's not in an actual wax museum, because this show is so fucking cheap, it's, like, ridiculous, and every segment's only, like, 10 minutes, so it doesn't need to be, like, drawn out or anything, and it doesn't need to be, like, a spectacular special effects extravaganza or anything, but the sets are, like, so cheap, and they're obviously just stretching the budget with just these 2 figurines of Frankenstein and Dracula. So the episode is about this French guy with a really overdone fake French accent who is like, oh, I'm gonna import the blade that cut off Marie Antoinette's head, and then there's this horrible executioner figure that, like, causes all these spooky accidents, and it's like the guillotine drops without anyone touching it, and, like, the bolt magically unscrews and, like, it drops down, and it almost cuts off this one girl's head because her boyfriend's trying to take a picture of her, and he's taking a long ass time with it, and she's like, oh shit. But then it turns out that the wax museum owner replaced the blade with wood just in time, because otherwise it would have chopped off her head, which is an interesting angle to take. I thought that this one was fake, not because necessarily a guillotine could malfunction, it's an unwieldy piece of equipment, but just because I didn't really buy that a museum could, like, import, like, the actual blade that chopped off Marie Antoinette's head, and I felt like a wax museum would probably just get any blade. I mean, any blade will work. Does it have to be the specific one that chopped off Marie Antoinette's head? Like, I think that'd be pretty fucking expensive, especially for, like, just like a wax museum. I know how much wax museums make, but I imagine that would be pretty damn expensive. I'm not sure if that detail was just, like, added in, or if it's true that some wax museum got a hold of the actual blade that did it, because I feel like that sort of thing would have maybe been lost during the French Revolution. I don't know. But Jonathan Frakes said this one is true. So this actually fucking happened, I guess. Again, it's not even because the guillotine is, like, malfunction. I don't even think it's necessarily like the executioner. But I just thought, what's the odds that some wax museum can frickin' afford the actual blade from Marie Antoinette's execution? And also, Jonathan Frakes said that it's in Canada. And it's, like, some Canadian wax museum, not even, like, a fucking American one in, like, LA, or you mean, like, in fucking Calgary or some shit? They're able to afford this priceless historical artifact? Okay. That stretches believability a little bit. But to give the episode credit, it did its job, it fooled me. I was sure that this one was made up, because, again, there's so many wax museums in like, horror and shit. It's like overdone to shit, and I was just like, yeah, this one's probably made up. But I guess it actually happened, which, I'm willing to give the episode the benefit of the doubt on. I get that this is stupid, but I'm having fun so far. Segment 4 is called Blood Bank, and this one was a real turning point, because this is one where I realized, like I said, that the best approach is just to believe it until it stretches credibility so far that you can't believe it anymore. So this one's about this nurse, and she has a mysterious, weird patient. He's all pale and still, and then one night she sees 2 creepy vampire type people come in his room, and they're all old, and they're like, ooh, we want to see our friend here. And he's like, let me see my friends. And so then the nurse is like, oh, this is fucking weird. This guy's probably a vampire. And then she comes in the next day, and she like tells this guy to take him out and get an x-ray so she can check the bathroom. The bathroom's covered in, fucking blood bags. It's kind of like that scene from The Thing. And it's just like tons of blood dripping everywhere, and it's like a fucking bloodbath, and all the bags are open. It's just a big bloody spectacle. It's really delightful. Then the vampire comes in, and he's like, why didn't you stay out? And he tries to bite into her neck, and then she like shoves him aside, and the security guard comes up and like tries to apprehend him, but then he shoves the security guard back against the wall, and he jumps out the fucking window. And his body's never found or anything. Jonathan Frakes points out after this one, it could be that it's just like this criminal who wants to, deal blood around the black market, but pretends to be a vampire so that nobody will ever catch on, and everyone will refuse to report it. And I kind of felt like this one does sound a lot like the kidney harvesting urban legend. The guy who goes to fucking Thailand or whatever, it's always different, and then he wakes up in the ice bathtub, and there's like a bunch of tubes coming out his back, and it's like, oh, we harvested your kidney, sorry about that, buddy. And like that one's really ridiculous. But this one I don't think I've heard before of like some vampire criminal who pretends to be a vampire but is actually just like dealing blood. And I thought that was a pretty interesting and novel concept. And I was like, well, that is somewhat believable. I could kind of see that happening. He jumps out the window at the end, but most people who would be willing to deal blood would probably jump out a window to escape capture. And would probably know how to land right and get away from the scene of the crime. So I was willing to give this one the benefit of the doubt and say this one is probably true. There probably was some criminal who pretended to be a vampire so he could steal blood, and that would be pretty easy, really. Obviously, the couple who visits him helps smuggle it out. That's a pretty easy story to believe. There's nothing inherently supernatural or weird about that. And so, this one is apparently true. Like I said, if this show ever does have like the kidney harvesting episode or the earwig story, if I ever see either of those, I'm gonna be like, oh shit, I can't trust this show for anything. Because the Wikipedia article does say that a lot of the stories are just like either like really exaggerated or like probably fake, even the true ones. I'm sure, obviously, this did not happen in exactly the way it's presented, but can I buy that, hospitals get shit stolen from them, resources and stuff? Yes, that's perfectly believable. I buy that. So yeah, this one was apparently true, and I guess it was true. So I felt pretty damn proud of myself, because this one is obviously the red herring, where it's like, well, he's a fucking vampire, but it's actually real. So this one is very tricky, and I imagine every episode probably has a very difficult one like this. So this one was a good, solid entry that really kept me guessing. The last segment was called Ring Toss. And holy shit, this one was so dumb, but at the same time it was so funny. Apparently it has Robert Zadar in it somewhere. I didn't notice Robert Zadar, but Robert Zadar is the Grim Reaper from Soul Taker, which I remember from an MST3K episode, but I didn't see him. I guess he's in there at some point. But anyway, this episode is about this crooked carnival booth guy, and he's like all fat and mean and just like a big ass, like steals, or he doesn't steal, but he like cheats. Like the ring toss game is like so hard to win, which like basically every carnival has ring toss games that are hard to win. That doesn't make him a criminal. That just makes him normal. Like, there's nothing illicit about this fucking ring toss game. But this one is so hilariously fake. It kind of makes me wonder, just like, was this stuffed in at the end as like a fucking joke? Because like, you'd have to be really stupid to believe this one. So the carnival booth guy, like, he takes money from his kids again and again, and they keep trying to win the big fucking stuffed rabbit or whatever, but then he's like, oh, you don't win, you know, because like, obviously, like, it's basically impossible to win those. But then this old guy comes up and he's like, I'll play, and he hands like fucking a bunch of money to the big oaf, and then the oaf has to like keep giving him like stuffed animals. He hands one of the girls like a little one at first, and then she's like, no, I want the big one. And then the old guy's like, oh, okay. And it's like, usually at those type of games, which I've played, you usually have to do something more to win the big ones than the little ones. Like, you have to get 3 rings or something as opposed to just 1. Like, they're not all set at the same objective. Like, you have to do more to win the bigger prizes. But anyway, like, so the old guy just keeps paying again and again for the ring toss, and he keeps winning, and like, he keeps getting the stuffed animals again and again. He keeps winning the prizes, and the oaf gets like so pissed at this, even though, like, why would you get pissed? You're being paid. Like, the old guy's paying to play the fucking game and he's winning. It's not that big a deal. You're still making a decent amount of money. Like, sure, you're not making as much money as if someone just loses every time, but at the same time, what are you getting upset about? It's not like he's stealing from you. He's just playing the game in the way it's meant to be played, and he's just abnormally good at it. So I was like, this is stupid. Obviously, this guy would have no reason to be this fucking upset at the old guy. It doesn't make any sense, because, like, why would he be so pissed? Like, what's he's losing fucking stuffed animals that you buy in bulk for, like, fucking pennies? Like, what? Like, this is so stupid, absurd. It's like something of actual value is being taken from him when, like, what does he want these fucking prizes? Like, what? This episode is ridiculous already. Like, the premise just makes no sense. It's very fun and cool and interesting, and I can see what they were going for. Like, this is a very funny premise that can be milked a lot, but it's obviously just not true, because, like, no carnival employee is this fucking pissy. Like, I've never seen anyone who's this upset about losing prizes at a ring toss booth. Like, it's just stupid. It doesn't make any sense. So he confronts the old guy, and the old guy's like, and it's all creepy. And then the oaf goes into the haunted house ride, and again, like, the budget is just stretched so fucking thin. Like, it's very obvious they just went to some random carnival, or like, can we film for 5 minutes outside, and then, like, the set inside is just like all dark, and it's not even really a ride. It's just like a fucking unlit room. It's really amazing how they stretch the budget again. Anyway, so, like, the spooky skeleton pops up and scares the shit out of the oaf, and then he like, it goes dark, and so then they go in and find him, and he's hung by the ring. He's hung by the ring, which, mind you, isn't like a metal hoop or anything. It's like fucking wood. It's like the shit that an Easter basket is built out of, which would not support the weight of this 500-pound guy. And then right next to him, there's this freaking animatronic that looks like the old guy. And it was at this point that I was like, how did they even think anyone was supposed to believe this was real? This is so fucking obviously fake. But Jonathan Frakes does his best afterwards to try and create a little bit of ambiguity around it. Like, could it be that the oaf's criminal past had come up with him, and the old guy just happened to have a puppet that looked just like him in the fun house, even though, like, it's the exact same fucking shirt and tie and everything that the old guy was wearing, and it's like, no, that's way too big of a coincidence. There aren't just fucking puppets of old guys with like fucking tweed clothes hung up in carnival funhouse rides. That's stupid. Obviously, this segment takes a lot from like Perchance to Dream and shit. I love stuff with a funhouse, and that's always fun. Shit at a carnival. Again, it's a fun segment. I can see where it's coming from with all these like common ideas that are integral to the genre, but obviously this one was like fake as fuck, because it's like, maybe without the puppet, but even then, like, no carnival employee would get this pissy about just someone who's good at their fucking game. And also, again, the hoop could not support his fucking neck. It's a cool idea, but like, it's made out of fucking bendy, flimsy wood. Like, that would not be able to hang someone. So yeah, I was like, bullshit. And this one is in fact fake, if you believe that. This one was totally fake. But it is very inventive. It's a very fucking inventive story. And if it wasn't on Beyond Belief, and people were trying to convince me that it was real, like if it was just an episode of Twilight Zone or something with a little better acting and it was stretched out to like a little longer length, this would actually be a fun little horror story, because it wouldn't be trying to fool me into thinking it's real. It's actually a nice little story on its own. Obviously fake. It's like so fucking fake. I have no idea how this one even like passed the vetting process. It is fucking ridiculous. So yeah, all in all, I got 4 out of the 5. And the one I got wrong was the Wax Museum one, but all the other ones I got right. So I wonder, if I keep watching, I wonder how many I'll get right per episode. Probably around 4-ish. I think I'm pretty good with this. Again, I really like the fucking interactive aspect. I like how it encourages viewers to play along and figure out what's real and what's not. It encourages critical thinking, and you know, some people like following game shows, like Jeopardy or whatever, but this is way more fun than a game show, because there's like writing and storytelling involved, and it's just like, which of these stories are fake and which ones are real. And it's also very unique in that, like, it's got 5 stories that are all like 10 minutes each. So I feel like this show is specially designed for people with short attention spans. So if you can't like sit through a long thing, just watch this fucking show. It's really fun. And each story is only like 10 minutes. And you can even just fucking, you know, skip ahead and ruin it for yourself if you're really that much of an impatient doorknob. But I would recommend just popping on an episode and watching it all the way through. That's the most fun. And just keep score of which ones you think are fake and which ones are real. It's really fucking fun and interesting. And it's just a shame to think that this era of TV has passed everyone by. And people talk about, like, fucking Bandersnatch. Fuck Bandersnatch. Bandersnatch can suck it. I like Beyond Belief. Everyone's like, for Netflix, oh, well, it lets you choose your own adventure, bro. It's like a video game. That's stupid. Beyond Belief is way more fun interactive viewing. It's just, like, more fun. It doesn't have its head up its ass like Black Mirror does. It's sci-fi and horror done right. And it has such a unique premise. Like, to think that some of these things are real and some of them are fake, that's genius. I have no idea how, like, people don't come up with ideas this great more often, but it's a fantastic premise for a show. And Jonathan Frakes is perfect, and everything else is just, like, really fun. It's a fun watch. Yeah, I recommend Beyond Belief. I recommend watching it one episode at a time all the way through. Do not skip around unless you want it ruined, but it's the most fun if, like, you kind of forget about the episode until the end, and then it explains it all at the end, which, again, is genius. It's a genius way to make this show structured so that people had to keep watching until the end of the episode. Even if they only cared about, like, the first story, they'd have to watch all 5 of them until the end. It's completely genius. So yeah, I like Beyond Belief. I'm a Beyond Belief fan. And I'm going to watch some more episodes of this because it's really, really fun. Thumbs up. I would give Beyond Belief, Like, it's not a good show by any means. It's not as good as Outer Limits or Stargate or any of those. I don't even really like Stargate, for the record, but it has a cool look. That's what I mean. I like the late 90s type feel. I just like that era of sci-fi. Not my favorite era of sci-fi, mind you, but definitely my favorite era of broadcast TV. So I would have to give Beyond Belief, like, the writing is terrible, but the stories are really fun. And the acting's awful, but the look and feel of it is just very, very charming and quaint. I have to give Beyond Belief like 7.5 out of 10, I would say. That'd be my score for Beyond Belief. It's a fun watch. It's no masterpiece, but it is very, very fun to watch. I think it's a great example of how to do really, really low-budget spectacle right, because it's just like so fucking cheap. It's made on fucking matchsticks, but at the same time, it's just like so delightful, and it's just like quaint atmosphere, and it's just like inoffensive. God, I can't get enough of it. So yeah, Beyond Belief, Fact or Fiction. That's today's review. What do you think, Beyond Belief? Let me know down in the comments. I'll catch you on the flip side, or whatever the fuck. I hope my camera isn't breaking. Okay. Good night, everybody.